Hi everyone. Um, this is Mahesh from Express Analytics. We're just getting started. We'll give a minute or two for people to join in. So please bear with us. We'll get started in a minute or two. All right. I guess we're ready to start. We have I see some attendees, so we will get started. Hello everyone. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Um, Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar from Express Analytics. Today's topic is identity resolution, the key to improving your marketing ROI. Um, my name is Mahesh, and I am the Vice President of Consulting Services at Express Analytics. I'll be moderating today's webinar. And today we have our two speakers, Samir Varudkar and Udayan Kelkar. Just a quick background on Samir and Udayan. Samir is our product engineering head. He's an expert in enterprise data architecture, predictive modeling, data integration, and overall business intelligence strategy and analytics. We have Udayan, who is joining this webinar, and he is our Vice President of Global Sales, and he has vast experience in sales management, marketing, partner management, and in products as well as services business. Now, just a quick announcement, housekeeping announcement before we start. First is during this webinar, we are going to do a few polls. So um, please take time to answer the questions, and uh, all your inputs are very important and will help us. And second is that during the webinar, the attendees will be muted. However, please feel free to type in all your questions in advance in the chat box on the GoToWebinar. And we will take the questions at the end of the session. And with that, I turn over this to Udayan.
Thank you, Mahesh, and hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Udayan Kelkar, Vice President of Sales at Express Analytics. Once again, thank you for tuning into our webinar on identity resolution. Before we dive into the presentation, I thought I would spend just a few minutes setting the background and context for the topic. We all know we live in an age which is commonly known as the age of the customer, which means the customer is in control of the relationship with brand and not vice versa. Widely and instantly available information on price comparisons, features comparisons, and product reviews help in creating this environment. Customers are not only well informed, but also feel entitled, and the expectations from brands are very high. So recent surveys in 2019 have shown that about 80% of customers expect a very personalized experience when they interact with brands, be it pre or post sale. And on the other hand, we, the marketers, we want to push personalized and relevant promotions to increase our ROI. So you could say that today's marketing is about building relationships with customers with personalized and focused messaging. And identity resolution plays a key part in this new paradigm. So in the next 30 minutes or so, we'll give you an overview of the topic and hopefully demystify some of the concepts related to identity resolution. So on your screen, you could see the agenda. So we will, before we dive into the main presentation, I'll give you a very, very brief overview about us, who we are, what we do, and I promise I'll be very, very brief on this. We'll then talk about, obviously, what is identity resolution. You know, the term is widely used in the marketing and MarTech industry, but the interpretations could be different. So we'll take some time to elaborate our definition. We'll then evaluate why we need it. Well, quite simply put, it is the starting point of the modern new age marketing. After all, you know, segmentation and personalization would not be possible without identity resolution. We'll then throw some light on how it can be achieved. You know, we operate in a very dynamic environment that has multiple customer touch points across many channels. Customer data is also fragmented across different platforms. So identity resolution, you know, it poses a challenge both for IT as well as marketing. So in this section, we will examine, you know, how it could be achieved. And lastly, of course, the most important point, which is the benefits. Well, to my mind, the answer is quite simple: increased sales and margins. But how does it happen? So you'll hear about that in the presentation. Next slide. So I'll talk about Express Analytics. I promised that I'll not take much time. We've been in data and analytics business for over 20 years now, and we focused exclusively on these two domains. And over the years that we've been in business, we've done work for over 50 clients. Some of them you can see here. We've got the Lamps Plus, which is the largest lighting and furnishing retailer in the US. Dermalogica, which is a skincare and personal care products company, which is a subsidiary of Unilever. We've done work for Sony, Walmart, etc. We partner with some of these technology companies. AWS is our partner for hosting. We have a solution called Oyster, which is a customer data platform, and that's offered as a SaaS solution using AWS as a partner. And over the years of our existence, we've collected a number of awards and recognitions for delivery excellence. So that's in brief about Express Analytics. And before we move into the main presentation, we thought we'll start with a quick poll. So Mahesh, over to you for the first poll.
Thanks, Udan. Hi, everyone. So as I said, we are going to get few questions here. So I'll launch the first one. What we're trying to find out from all of you is what are the top marketing challenges that your organizations are facing right now? And this is a multi-select question, so please select as many applicable challenges that you feel are appropriate here. So we'll give a little bit of time for everyone to answer. I see that people are responding. So we'll get maybe 10-15 more seconds for everybody. All right. I see people are still keying in their answers, so maybe a few more seconds. All right, I guess almost everyone has voted. So I will close this poll and then we will quickly look at the results so that we all understand where our peers stand. So looks like data management and campaign performance measurement. These two are the most common challenges within the organizations that have dialed in today. And of course, the other ones like identity resolution, which is going to be the topic for today's webinar, and overall analytics and decisioning. So all these points seem very valid in my mind, and then we will we will tend to one of these challenges today, identity resolution, and we will take the other ones for our feedback and the next webinars. So thanks for answering. We will go back to the presentation and over to Samir then.
Thanks, Mahesh. Hi, everyone. So as Udayan had said, we're going to start by asking what is identity resolution? Now, I hope you'll indulge me as I tell you a example that might be a bit of an absurdist take on the problem at hand. So suppose that you are running a store and you receive a series of worrying calls. The first caller says that they prefer to carry a Walther PPK pistol. The second man who calls you says that he drives an Aston Martin. The third person to call says that they call their coworkers Q and M. The fourth caller says that they work for the British Secret Service. The fifth person who calls says that they have a license to kill, and the sixth person says that they want a dry martini, shaken, not stirred. Now, all of these are odd, and you obviously ask, who are you? The person responds in yes, the six people who had called you all identify themselves as James Bond. Well, this is a bit of a absurdist take on what's actually happening in real life when you are interacting with your customers. Each of those six callers represents a individual interaction with the customer, where that customer might provide you with an individual piece of information. Where each of these individual pieces of information doesn't really have much meaning on its own, it's when you are able to combine them to build the identity of James Bond that you're able to have a much more holistic vision of them. Otherwise, you might treat the callers who said that they have a license to kill or carry a pistol a lot differently than you would carry yourself when dealing with the person who says that they are a martini drinker or enjoy the finer cars in life. So the key is that we want to be able to identify and unify the different pieces of information that we get about a customer into an identity so that we have a holistic image of them and can better plan how we are going to treat them. So let's roll back the clock to 2007. At the time, the only major consumer device that was widely used was the personal computer. There weren't any smartphones, there weren't any apps. Geolocation of the consumer was tied to the physical location of their computer, and Wi-Fi being proliferated was not a thing. Life was pretty simple as a marketer. The thing is, though, that everything changed. In the year 2020, we're now in a multi-device reality. There are multiple channels that a customer might use, and the customer's attention span is a lot shorter. And their customer journey can carry over multiple devices, multiple applications, and multiple geolocations, but they still want the same quality of service. And this is especially important because of just how much of a role this mobile presence plays. 80% of all American adults used the internet via their smartphone in the year 2019, and 95% of all adults said that they would use their phone when researching a product prior to making a purchase. Close to 29% of all e-commerce that was conducted in the year 2019 was primarily via mobile devices. So this proliferation of mobile access to e-commerce means that conventional rules for reaching customers has experienced a major paradigm shift, which means that you need to find a way to be able to identify a customer and give them the same user experience across every single channel that they might be interacting with you on. Therefore, you have to build an identity for them and be able to use that identity in order to interact with them. Identity resolution is a must in 2020 for marketing strategy. So before we move on to discussing the more about the what of identity resolution, why don't we quickly take a poll? I know that Mahesh said that he has a second poll that he'd like us to look at, which is if you are using an identity solution now.
Right. Thank you, Samir. So everyone will just get the next poll on. We're trying to find out, now that we know what identity resolution is, we're trying to find out where on the overall spectrum of this solution are you or your corporations are. Basically just beginning to investigate, or you already have an solution but are looking for other options. So please take your time and then select the one where you think you are on this journey of implementing identity solutions in your orgs. I see people answering. We'll give some more time for all of them, maybe 10, 12 more seconds. Well, I see people are still voting, and the counts are increasing, so I'll give a few more seconds for everyone. All right, so let's find out where the audience is on this overall journey. And looks like most of the audience is just beginning to investigate and identity solutions for the organizations, and that's not really unexpected. This is something that the whole industry is getting geared towards. So a lot of organizations are now thinking of getting some kind of identity resolutions in their applications. So it's a good sign that most of you are trying to investigate, so that I'm hoping today's webinar will help you getting a better idea about what this is and how we can implement it. So thanks again for your answers, and we will go back to the details. Samir, over to you.
Sure. So let's move on to trying to answer the question of, so why do we need identities? What value does identities and identity resolutions for our customer base bring to the table? So the key is that identities serve as a framework to achieve two major roles in your business and marketing strategy. The first is that it serves as a 360-degree customer view, because you're able to build this identity that serves as a signpost for how an individual customer's information is as a whole. You're able to have a single source from which you can draw and judge a customer and be able to better plan your marketing orchestration. It's a lot easier to be able to look at a simple list that can take the numerous bits and pieces of a customer information and put them together. And this isn't just, information like their name and their address. It can get into a lot more specific detail, such as factors of gender, whether they are homeowners or not, whether they have specific tastes in terms of product. All of these play into the 360-degree view we get for a customer. The other role that having an identity base serves is that it's allowing you to have a unified customer experience. Because you're able to use this singular source, it is a lot easier for you to control how your marketing will interact with a customer, no matter what channel they're coming in. You don't need to worry about having to continually ensure that you're treating a customer the same way when they're accessing your site via a mobile device or via a walk into a brick and mortar store. The core idea of identity is that it is never static, it is ever in the making, and it is never made. It's serving as essentially a single object that, while it changes, allows as a purpose of its existence parts. That is predictability, accountability, repeatability, trust, and stability to your marketing strategy. Now, as you can see here, an ID can consist of a number of pieces. For example, here might be an example of a customer, Joseph McDougall, where it's not just information like his address and his email, but we can also add in things like a social security number if we have access to it, any social media handles, any values that we know, such as mobile number or the IP address or MAC address for the devices that he uses. So all of these play together in order to create a unified vision, because we want to be able to track Joe McDougall, the person, and the identity allows us to do that. So all users kind of exist on something called an identity continuum, where they go from a person that you know nothing about to a verified and valued customer. In the digital era, this goes from someone who's only occasionally browsing on your website, and therefore you have an IP address that shows up on often enough that you can probabilistically match it to a single customer, to a customer who is so well known to you that they are part of your emailing list, they're a member of your loyalty program, and they are even someone who is registered with two-factor authentication, for example, on your service. This continuum also carries over to the real world, where the example would be much more of the comparison of a stranger walking into your brick and mortar store and going up the continuum as, for example, they make a purchase with cash, or they become more well known to you because they have paid with credit card, and you can probabilistically match the identity that you have for them with their physical presence. As you increase your knowledge of them, they might become a member of your in-store loyalty program, which creates a deterministic match between physical presence and the identity, so on and so forth. The key question, though, is that you'll notice that there's always this issue of a valley between the identity and the digital presence of a person and their physical presence. So how do we bridge that gap? Well, there are a couple of pretty straightforward ways that we can achieve that. We can do this by geofencing, where when a customer walks into your brick and mortar store or within range of them, you can send them a push notification to their mobile device that is attached to an identity to inform them that certain items that are on sale are available to them. And this allows you to create a probabilistic match between identity and physical presence. For a deterministic match, you could use a QR code, where you allow a user to scan a QR code for the loyalty app, which creates a deterministic match between a mobile device user and their identity. You could use facial recognition if you wanted to deterministically match a user's presence in your physical store to their identity. Or you could use something as simple as a user connecting to the Wi-Fi when they're at your store. All of these allow you to bridge the gap and allow you to access the customer in the physical space and offer them the same point of access that you would have if they were in the e-commerce space. So we've talked a lot about the identity and identity resolution importance, but we don't really talk about how do you achieve it? How do you actually perform identity resolution? So there are a couple of key things that you can do to transition users from being an anonymous to a verified user. You can gather the information that you have on them. You can standardize that information. You can validate it with external sources like credit card companies or Google. You can merge and deduplicate your records, and you can also household them. Now, householding refers to the idea of taking a number of customers who have common values for certain parts of their identity, such as their address or indications of a parent-child relationship. By using these points, you can say that the customers who are members of this household can hold together and can be used as a group. That is, the business strategy and the marketing decisions you make to affect one of those customers or to market to one of those customers can help inform how you're going to market to other members of that same group. So let's look at a real world example. Suppose that we have a Joe McDougall who makes a purchase on our e-store. Well, the first thing we want to do is take their input data and we want to cleanse it. This is done by camel casing his name, checking with a service like CAS in order to correct the address into a proper form, as well as using CAS to add information like the latitude and longitude of that address, and using census data to add information such as Joe McDougall's gender. We can then use a machine learning algorithm to check this new cleansed data against existing data that we might have and see if we can find any matches. For example, we might find that there is data for a McDougall, J in our prospect and marketing server, and we might also find a address and information on a Joseph Allen McDougall in our legacy systems. So then we can take all of these pieces and you can standardize them to create a consolidated record, which serves as an identity. This is done by taking our numerous data points and running a machine learning algorithm that will parse through each of these identity profile pieces to find unique sections such as homeowner status, gender, social security number, and carry those over into the consolidated record. Then the machine learning algorithm will take the fields where there is an entry in one or more of the pieces and search for the most complete version. In this example, we take Joseph Allen McDougall as the name because it is the most complete representation of Joe's name. We similarly take the address that we got from the web order because it is the one that has most recently been audited by CAS and is therefore the most likely to be accurate. Now that we have a consolidated record, we can use this going forward for when Joe makes contact with our business, whether that's via email or via walking into our store. So we have this great idea of how to perform identity resolution, but as I said, there's a lot of machine learning algorithms and the like involved there. So how do we actually achieve identity resolution? It's not like you can just have a identity resolution happen apropos of nothing. What you need would be a persistent store of all of your customer interactions that you can use to drive your customer intelligence. As it so happens, for example, Express Analytics has developed a customer data platform called Oyster, where Oyster is used to allow for an expansion on that base concept of a customer data platform to allow for an open, extensible, and real-time decisioning process when it comes to your marketing strategy. So I know this is next slide is going to be a bit of a jump, but let me give you a quick run through of how Oyster and all CDPs essentially function. The first section is to have a data collection layer where we take the client's data that they have, for example, transaction information, and combine that with secondary party data, such as information they're getting from their email clients like MailChimp on the email blast they're sending out, which includes bounce back rate or open rates, so on and so forth. We also include data such as information gotten from Experian or Dun & Bradstreet related to customers. And we combine that with publicly sourced data such as census data, data on the income brackets that are available in certain geolocations, and so on and so forth. We take all of this information that we have now stored and put it through our machine learning and intelligence layer. The machine learning and intelligence layer serves a couple of purposes. Number one, it lets us answer a couple of questions and create answers to questions like lifetime value, the recency and frequency of purchase, and it also lets us form the identity. This is where the identity resolution step of the CDP functions. And it also is where the determination of customer lifetime value is added. Once you get a CLTV figure from the customer lifetime value predictor, you're able to add that to your identity. And now we're able to move that into the next layer, which is the presentation layer. In the presentation layer, you're able to view your data in a form that is useful for the purposes of advanced analytics, visual data exploration, scorecarding and dashboarding, and alerting and notifications on how your customer base is moving and acting. Then we move on to the action layer. This is where a lot of the value of a CDP arrives. You get to use this to better automate your campaigns, better deliver your email and SMS marketing campaigns, improve how your in-store interactions work, direct mail campaigns, so on and so forth. So before we move on to the last section of our presentation, I'd like to actually take our third poll, which is simply to ask if people are planning on investing in a customer data platform.
Thanks, Samir. So everyone, as Samir said, with the context of customer data platforms and how they can solve or serve identity resolution and more, the next question from us is to find out if any one of you are planning to invest in a CDP in any near future. It could be just like an immediate near future, which is 1 to 6 months, or maybe not immediately on your radar, or you're not even sure about it. So please let us know where you are on this overall spectrum of planning to invest in a customer data platform. I see some of you have answered. I would encourage all of you to answer this question, please. Okay, a few more seconds for people to answer. All right, thank you. We'll just close this. And looks like most of you are still starting the overall journey of customer data platforms and identity resolution. So I guess people are more trying to get a idea of all these concepts and how that can help the businesses so that you guys can think about the investment. So I think with that, we will move to the topic that all you must be interested to know. What exactly is a CDP or an identity resolution is gonna do for your business? So over to you, Samir.
Yeah, so as Mahesh said, let's move on to kind of what we all came here for, which is what are the benefits that identity resolution brings to the table? So the big value that you get from identity resolution falls into two sections: the benefits and the outcomes that you're going to get as a business. The major benefits is that you're going to improve the ability to convert your customers from prospects to sales. And you're also going to be able to better understand the context and intent of your customers' visits, which will lead to you being able to deliver hyper-personalization, which, let's face it, is kind of the big nugget in the mine these days. It also will allow us to increase the ability to attribute sales to marketing activities, and it will allow us to encourage repeat buying habits, which will obviously drive sales. The other outcomes that you'll see is that you'll be able to better band your customers into groups of price sensitivity and thus improve the amount of marketing spend that you're putting on different groups. And you'll also be able to better predict credit risk in the cases of your company being someone who's in a lending field. But as I was saying about hyper-personalization, one of the biggest factors that identity resolution brings to the tables is the value that you bring to your customers. You're able to provide a much more personalized service to your customer, which means that you're not wasting money sending out spam emails. You're not sending them irrelevant ads, because I don't know about you, but I remember when I was, 18 or 19 years old, and I had a Costco card, and getting ads for, sales on wine. Unfortunately, much as I might have liked to, I wasn't able to take advantage of those coupons, and they didn't make much value to me. So relevant promotions is also an important factor to what you can deliver with identity resolution. You can also provide improved service speed and improve the customer experience, as well as allow an overall increase in customer centricity. All this translates to benefits not only for you on the business end, but also for your customers on their end. It might seem like a shaky frontier, but the fact of the matter is that identity resolution is going to make a huge benefit to your business. Now, I think that's pretty much everything that I had wanted to say today. So I wanted to just hand it off to Mahesh to wrap us up, because I see that we are a little bit over time.
Yes, thank you, Samir. I think that was a very informative session. Thank you for sharing your ideas. I see one question, although we are over time, I think we have, let's take at least one question. There are many, but I'll select one. The question is identity resolution going to benefit only large multi-store organizations, or does it help even the single store organizations? And so Samir, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so fundamentally, identity resolution is beneficial no matter what size your business is. And in a lot of ways, in a certain sense, if you have a single store, at a certain level, you may have already been doing identity resolution. It just may have been not as formalized. The example being that if you have a single store and you have the idea of the store regulars, your cashiers will recognize them, you will recognize them, and the way that you will treat them and the things that you will try and sell them on will be very different. When you have that customer who comes in and you know that they browse for a long period of time, but eventually they know exactly what they wanted and they come in, they make that purchase, and they get out, you will know how to market to them as a person when they come in store, and you will choose that. You won't be wasting time sending cashiers or people on the floor to go and pester them with sales offers, because you know how they think. So that idea of identity resolution is something that you could benefit from just having as a formal thing, so that when you have a new hire, they immediately can look at this list and know how to treat your regulars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess identity resolutions is very much applicable and beneficial to all sizes and shapes of businesses, and not necessarily with the physical stores having organizations, but this makes more relevance to organizations or businesses that operate in a multi-channel environment where um, they also have e-presence as well as brick and stores. So, and that's where identity resolution is gonna make the most bang. So I guess with that one question, we will wrap up. And I see some more questions from others as well, but in favor of time, I would want to end today's session here. But I promise that we will take all the questions from this session and we will answer them in email individually to all of you. So, and apart from today's topic of the webinar, if anybody has any further questions on overall data analytics, marketing analytics, and customer data platforms, please feel free to email them to one of us at the contact details here. We have our email addresses as well as phone numbers. Please reach out to us. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants. Thank you so much again for joining us today. And we will also do our next webinar in short while, and we will talk about personalization at scale, which is basically the next logical topic in the after the identity resolution on how we can personalize at scale. So I invite all of you to register for that webinar, and thanks again, and see you next time.